Okay, this is without a doubt one of the most requested and I think most important trainings that everybody could use right now. So I'm going to take this based on a conversation I had with my client, Kevin, and we did this on his one-on-one call on Monday, a couple days ago. So his piece of content that we wrote out specifically for his niche, he is a fitness coach, but I'm going to go and do a couple other examples for different niches just so that you guys can kind of get a see on multiple ways of thinking around this. So I told him, and here's the thing, everybody comes saying they have the same problem. I'm speaking directly to my niche, but my content's not hitting. I feel like I'm being so specific. No, you're fucking not. You're literally not being specific. And most of you might actually read this hook. The reason that you can't lose weight is because you think you have to be training 5 times a week and think, damn, that's pretty good. It's really not that good. So the first thing I had my client tell me is, tell me a hook. This is what he said. So I wrote it down because sometimes looking at it visually allows you to have a more obviously a more visual way to look at it and understand it. So the first thing that I did, I turned on suggestion mode, which I will do right now, and I said, let's first remove all of the unnecessary words inside of this hook. How can we say the exact same thing right here, but use less words? So, or actually, let me even start this further because his actual hook was the real reason. The real reason that you can't lose weight is because you think you have to be training 5 times a week. So the real reason that is completely unnecessary. So now we start with you can't lose weight. Obviously doesn't work anymore. You can't lose weight because you think you have to be training 5 times a week. Okay. I would say get rid of all of this and train this to this, or take that to that. So now we have a completely different hook. You can't lose weight because you train 5 times a week. Now I said the same thing. The real reason you can't lose weight is because you think you have to be training 5 times a week. You can't lose weight because you train 5 times a week. Same thing, way faster, way punchier, straight to the point, no fluff words. This is really important when it's coming to your talking or your written hooks. Now, with this could be a spoken hook or this could be a written hook. You can't lose weight because you train 5 times a week. So there's look at the difference, right? Sizing here. We're going to get straight to the point. You can't lose weight because you train 5 times a week. That was 2 seconds. That's how we want the hooks to read. Now, if I wanted to make this a written text hook that goes on the screen, I could do that and then I could say something else, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So now I told him, let's look at really what is the specificity aspect of these things. So when we say training 5 times a week, I know exactly what he's talking about. 5 times a week training, very specific, very tangible. When he says can't lose weight, that is a little bit more vague. Not going to say it's bad, but our goal is to really understand how to make these things so specific that it's impossible for people to not at least watch the first 3 seconds. So what we did, and I'll start creeping up his actual piece of content that we made here, is, and try not to read ahead, even though you will. So his hook turned into training 5 times a week is why you can't lose your love handles. So now, instead of lose weight, we just made it a little bit more specific and more tailored to a certain pain point that an ideal person in his audience is 100% struggling with. So I'm going to explain each of these lines, and then I'm just going to say it out loud to you as if I was filming the piece of content. So the process here is, my friend Breyer talks about this really well. He talks about the concept of hook stacking, which is layering in multiple hooks at different parts of your video to make sure that people stay engaged and you keep opening curiosity loops. A curiosity loop still needs to be specific. If you say you can't lose weight because you're making this one mistake, lose weight is super vague, this one mistake is pretty vague. It's more than likely, unless you're already an established creator and your face is a hook in itself, and what I mean by that is that Alex Hormozi doesn't have to pick up his phone and say, here are 5 tips for that. He can just talk because he's Alex Hormozi. You see him, you recognize his face, that's the hook. And until you have 10 million niche followers, you got to play the game a little bit differently. That just is what it is, in my opinion. So it says, Training 5 times a week is why you can't lose your love handles. Let me explain. This blew my mind when I figured it out. Additional hook. Okay, 2 concepts we need to understand, or I could say you need to understand. You need to understand for this to make sense. So I did multiple hooks here. Hook, hook, hook. So if I say, training 5 times a week is why you can't lose your love handles. Let me explain. This literally blew my mind when I figured it out. Okay, 2 core concepts you need to understand around this for it to make sense. The first one is what I like to call, now this part is important. Now, let me back up. Before I go further in this breakdown, I do not want, the intention of this training is not for you to watch and hear me talk about this and go, oh my gosh, every single piece of my content has to follow this exact format that Nick gave. You need to fucking relax, truly. And I mean, like, I love you, you have to relax. Content is not supposed to be this fucking serious, and this is why it's stressing you out so much. So if I say, here's the hook, second hook, third hook, and you go, oh my God, every single one of my videos has to start with 3 hooks, you are completely missing the fucking point of what I'm talking about because you're too hyper fixated on doing it perfect. Perfection doesn't exist. This is just an example of a piece of content we made for my client in a session. Does that mean that I follow this framework every single piece of content? No. Does it mean I add 3 layers of hooks to every single piece of content? No. Some of my content, I don't even do a hook. And that is completely okay. You need to stop worrying about it. I say, once we break this down, if you can crank out 5 to 10 pieces of content very structured like this per week, everything else you post, you really don't have to care that much about. You're going to get better by just posting content and talking, I promise. So when we go into the first one is what I like to call, the reason that I have this italicized is because when we say the words of I like to call, or what I tell my clients with this specifically, or the way that I break this down inside of my container is I talk about you're creating a sense of novelty inside of your piece of content, and novelty is just like your own spin on an idea. So I just had him tell me, well, what's the thing that you say or let you call that people are struggling with when it comes to why they can't lose weight for training 5 times a week? He says metabolic revamping. Perfect. I don't care. I don't have to know what it means. He has to know what it means. So think about this. Okay, 2 core concepts you need to understand around this for it to make sense. The first one is what I like to call metabolic revamping. Basically, when you train too much, you start eating into muscle, and your muscle is your metabolism. That's why, like, if you've ever cut calories and you still felt like you were gaining weight, this is why. Pause. Something to think about. The best actors always improvise the script based on what feels natural inside of the conversation. So if you notice, I said some things here that weren't actually written down, but I followed the framework of what was written down. That's where you have to give yourself freedom. If I were to just say, this is why you cut calories and still feel like you gain weight, ChatGPT. But if I say, yeah, if you've ever cut calories and you felt like you were still gaining weight, yeah, it's because of that. So one of Kevin's biggest problems is that he over-explains the concepts like this. This would have been 45 seconds in the video. When you train too much, you're burning a lot of calories and you're going into this state, and your body needs calories in order to do this. And if you don't have enough calories, you're going to start eating into muscle. And if you start burning muscle, that's when you're getting into a bad place, because your muscle is actually what stokes your metabolism. The more muscle you have, the more calories you burn. So, right, holy shit, shut up. Basically, when you train too much, you start eating into muscle. Your muscle is your metabolism. And if this happens and this happens, that's why. People are just going to go, oh, okay, now I understand. I have felt, and honestly, most people who fucking say they've cut calories and haven't lost weight haven't actually done it, but that's okay. We're just telling them, oh, it's metabolic revamping. Because if you've ever done that and you've still gained weight, it's probably because of that. And they're going to go, oh, I'm eating into my muscle. Makes sense. The second concept, here's another hook stack. The second concept, which a lot of people hate, hook, but you need to hear this one in order for this to make sense, second hook, calories in, calories out. And again, this is him giving me this information, and we're just putting it into a script. I could make this a whole video series on its own, but essentially, right here it is. Oh, this is a huge concept, but basically, simple sentence. You need to be eating a lot more calories than you think if your goal is fat loss. Condensed. Very simple. Not trying to over-explain it. Don't need to sound smart. If you want, now we'll go to the next line. If you can't lose your love handles, back to original pain point, call back. So if you can't lose your love handles, you're more than likely overtraining and undereating. And if you want to get that chiseled, toned stomach look, what I just did right there, if you saw me do this, I'm adding in the visual aspect that helps people see what I'm saying. Some people are audio learners, some people are visual learners, and some people are audio visual learners. So you want to hit all aspects of that. That's why if you ever make a talking piece of content and you don't have small subtitle captions on your video, you're quite literally missing 30 to 40% of the potential people that could be watching it in the first place, because about 30 to 40% of users scroll social media with their sound off. But that's not even adding into people who are actual visual interpreters of information. They have to read something for it to make sense. It's this most simple thing that could literally 10x what's happening in your content right now. So what I did there is I gave them that like visual. If you want to get that chiseled and toned stomach look that everyone seems to have, you have to focus on the process of metabolic revamping. And what I did is I called back this to my unique mechanism, and I created a gap. People are like, okay, but how do I do that? And then I give them a quick one with another analogy that just makes sense. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to make sense to your peers. It's just something that makes the average person go, oh, that makes sense. So essentially, control those calories upwards based on the body's feedback, and cut back training so that we have enough fuel in the gas tank to make it on a cross-country road trip, because you can't speed race your way to sustainable fat loss. End video. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to film, I'm going to record, I'm going to time myself saying this piece of content. We're going to see how it lands. Training 5 times a week is why you can't leave your law handles. Let me explain. This literally blew my mind when I figured it out. Okay, 2 core concepts for you to understand in order for this to make sense. The first one is what I like to call metabolic revamping. Basically, when you train too much, you start eating into muscle. Your muscle is your metabolism. And that's why if you've ever cut calories and been in a deficit, but you still feel like you gained weight, that's literally why. Second concept, which a lot of people hate, but you need to hear this one in order for it to make sense. It's calories in, calories out. Look, I can make a whole series on this, but essentially, you need to be eating a lot more calories than you think if your goal is fat loss. So if you can't lose your love handles, you're more than likely overtraining or undereating. And if you want to get that chiseled or toned look that everyone seems to have nowadays, you have to focus on the process of metabolic revamping. Essentially, control the calories upwards based on the body's feedback, and cut back training so that we have enough fuel in the gas tank to make it on a cross-country road trip, because you can't speed race your way to sustainable fat loss. 1 minute. As a 1 minute video. Very cut dry, very to the point, very simple. Now, if we take this whole concept and we boil it down, is this technically me scripting content? Yes. Did it feel like I was reading a script when I was saying it back to you? I know I jumbled my words in the beginning of the script, but it's really not that big of a deal. And even if you noticed when I said this, I was like, training 5 times a week, okay, use all handle. Not a big deal. I kept going. I'm 13 minutes into this video. It's okay if I mess up, because I'm a human. And in your content, even in my content, you will see there's multiple times in my reels where I anyways, and I go back to it. I'll sit in it for a second so that everybody knows I've also acknowledged that I've messed up, and we get this shared little laugh that connects us more through humanity. You are taking your shit way too freaking seriously, and that's why it's not working, I promise. Now, let me pause this. I'm going to write another concept for a different niche, and we'll keep going from there. Okay, let's say that you are somebody who's in a dating scene. You're never going to get a second date because you keep making this one mistake that everybody makes. This is not sexy. This is not helpful. It's nowhere near specific. I don't know if you're talking to a man or a woman. I don't know what anything is here, so I'm more than likely going to switch. So, if I were to say, let's get rid of unnecessary words here. Now, this is why I wrote it this way. This is very nuanced. There's not really a way for me to condense unnecessary words, because the entire hook is incredibly unnecessary. It's not really working the way that you would want it to. So now let's just say that this person is a dating coach specifically for men. Yes. She's never going to go on a second date with you. Okay, boom. Or the reason she never replies after the first date. Hyper specific. So let's just think about this. If you have a man in your audience who is constantly in the same repetitious pain point of, I always can get the first date, but then they never call me back. They never go on the second date. I've never been on a second date. This sucks. I'm never going to find love. If I say, you're never going to get a second date because you make this one mistake, it's not really going to hit him as hard. But if I say, the reason she never replies after the first date, now there's this specific thing because he's probably going through that at this point in time and going, why can't I get her to text me back? Why is she not texting me back? So if you say the reason she never replies after your first date, now we're getting somewhere. Now I can even go more curiosity. If she never replies after the first date, you probably made one of two mistakes. So now let's get this very, very clear. If she never replies after the first date, so hyper specific, I'm experiencing it, I can vividly see myself having a good time on the first date, etc. And now you probably made one of two mistakes. So there's hyper specificity in the first, there's less specificity in the second, but I still know it's one of two mistakes. And now there's a little bit of a curiosity loop because it's like, maybe I've made one, but maybe I make the other one as well. Let me at least lean in because she literally never replies after the first date. I hope that's tracking for you. Now, let's say this ends up being my talking hook. This is what I say. And now my question would be, what is the thing that I write as the title hook that doesn't say what I'm saying out loud, but it still gives more context to what the video is going to be about that creates even more of a curiosity loop? So if I'm saying, if she never replies after the first date, you probably made one of two mistakes. And you could say, it hurts me how many men think this is going to work on a date. It hurts me how many men think this is going to work. It's crazy how many men think this is going to work on a date. Women hate when you do this on a date. Hate when you do this on a date. So now let's pretend you are a man and you are currently in pain because you thought you had a really good first date with somebody and they didn't call you back after you texted them and you're like, what the hell? And now you get to this piece of content, you see me, the first thing you read is women hate when you do this on a first date. I'll make that even more specific. First date. And I say, if she never replies to you after the first date, you probably made one of two mistakes. I've gotten a very, very big world built for this person right here in this moment. Never replies. Women hate when you do this. And he's going, oh my God, am I doing this? Is she hating this? Is that why she's not replying? Because we all want the answer to be outside of us. Okay? I don't want it to have to be something that about me. I want it to be a mistake that I'm making, because if it's a mistake that I'm making, then it kind of like cures my insecurity that there's something wrong with me. It might just be something that I'm doing. I hope that makes sense for everybody. Okay, so let's go here. We're going to go right into the meat and potatoes of this piece of content. So let me get rid of this so it's not confusing. If she never replies after the first date, you're probably making one of these two mistakes. Mistake number one, right to the point. You're coming on too strong. You think leaning closer to her, asking her 100 questions and reaching for her hand is making you look good, but it's actually making you look desperate. And women subconsciously feel when a man is desperate for her to like him. Okay. So now what I do, I took multiple things that this guy does that most guys do on a first date, right? They try to lean in, they try to be confident, they're just asking her all of these questions, they're trying to touch, but he's like, hey, that's actually the mistake you should be making or you shouldn't be making. And look at what I did. I didn't give a solution really. I didn't say, instead, do this, this, and this. So I could add one more little point on here. You could say, if you walk away from the first date feeling like it went great, but she doesn't text you back afterwards, this is probably why. So now, even if a guy is having this subconscious resistance to what I'm saying, he is going to say, well, fuck, maybe he's right, because I always feel like the first date went great and then I never get a text back. Fuck, maybe I am coming off too strong. Coming off or coming on? Coming off too strong? I think it's coming on too strong. Anyway, so the mistake number one, straight to the point, amazing. Now I'm going to go right into the meat and potatoes. Mistake number two. And by the way, I'm not a dating coach. I'm literally making these up on the spot. You're talking too much about yourself. This is the opposite of mistake number one, but it has the same effect on the woman. A man who only talks about himself is going to be perceived as insecure and not grounded. Women are more attracted. Here's a small sliver of a solution and a hope. Women are more attracted to a man who is grounded and assured of who he is. That's why your nervous system and your nervous system is crucial to regulate if you really want to make women constantly want to see you again. Now, is this my most skilled piece of content I've ever written? No, not my niche. So, mistake number two, you're talking too much about yourself. This is the opposite of mistake number one, but it has the same effect on the woman. A man who only talks about himself is going to be perceived as insecure and not grounded. Women are more attracted to a man who is grounded and assured of who he is. And you could say something like, real confidence is silent. Real confidence is silent. That's why your nervous system is crucial to regulate if you really want to make women if you want women to always reach out to you first. If you really want a woman to ask you for a second date. Most of these aren't your fault, or I could say these aren't your fault. I'm going to create a gap. These aren't your fault because everybody is giving you bad advice. So now what did I just do? I took the two mistakes, I gave them perspective, they're doing things wrong, and then I put us on the same side. Hey, this isn't your fault. Everybody out here is giving you bad advice about how to attract a woman, but there's a reason why everything that you've tried has led you spinning your wheels. So I've created this gap. There's no information out there that's going to help you because you're making these mistakes. So now let's do the exact same thing. Or rather, let me close out this piece of content real quick. And I'm going to pause myself while I fix my typos because it's bothering me. Okay, we're back. So these aren't your fault because everybody is giving you bad advice. The most important thing to focus on if your goal is to have women see you as a high value man, it's a buzzword right now, is X. And before you X, or before you Y, you need to X. Otherwise, you're going to only ever have first dates. Boom. So the reason that I said you need to X and Y is because that's where I would put somebody's unique method or unique mode, right? The most important thing to focus on if your goal is to have women see you as a high value man is a concept that I call blank. And before you ask another woman out or whatever it is, you need to focus on insert unique mechanism here. So now let's do the same thing. And this title hook will be on the screen the entire time. So let's record it. Ready? If she never replies after the first date, you've probably made one of two mistakes. Mistake number one, you're coming on too strong. You think that leaning closer to her, asking her 100 questions, and reaching her out for her hand is making you look good, but it's actually making you look desperate. And women subconsciously feel when a man is desperate for her to like him. If you walk away after a first date feeling like it went great, but she doesn't text you back afterwards, this is probably why. Mistake number two, you talk too much about yourself. This is the opposite of mistake number one, but it has the exact same effect on the woman. Because a man who only talks about himself is going to be perceived as insecure and not grounded. Women are naturally attracted to a man who is grounded and assured of himself. And if he's really grounded, he doesn't have to constantly talk about how successful or how great he is. It's felt by the woman. That's why your nervous system is crucial to regulate if you really want a woman to ask you for a second date. Now, these mistakes aren't your fault because everybody else is giving you bad advice. The most important thing to focus on if your goal is to have women see you as a high value man is this. And before you ask out another woman on a first date, you need to do this, and do this. So that way, when you get on that date, you are a man that she cannot stay away from. Otherwise, you're only going to ever have first dates. It was 1:20. Good length. So what I did there, again, I improvised as it felt natural to me coming out because it felt more like a conversation. Now, when you are embodied and you are understanding of your niche, and this is something that you consistently have conversations with people about, you should be able to just naturally flow like you're having a conversation. Do not get yourself stressed out about saying all the right things. Let yourself flow inside of content. So if we look at this really and break it down, the title hook and written hook, the title hook is the written hook, and the spoken hook, they both have as little words as possible. They're both talking about the concept just from two different lenses. And that way I see a lot of specificity. Pain point here, and then curiosity, fear here. Women hate when you do this. Oh my God, women hate it? She never replies after the first date. Fuck, I know. Hitting them both. Curiosity loop, it's open. Now I can discuss. So what I would recommend is creating, like I said, 5 to 10 pieces of content intentionally like this per week and putting them out there, and then letting your other pieces of content just be you picking up your phone, talking, and allowing yourself to develop the skill of just riffing and not taking things too seriously. Both of those things are going to feed one another, and you're going to consistently get better, but you have to keep doing it, and you have to stop worrying so much about whether or not people are going to respond or you're going to get engagement, etc. That's going to come once you are consistent enough for people to catch on to what you're talking about. So if you're in Impakt community, because I'm also filming this as a free resource, what I strongly recommend is you guys fill out your organic funnel, go fill out your client clarity sheet, and then upload that Claude skill that I made for you guys about the organic funnel into Claude. Drop the organic funnel and the clarity sheet into a conversation with Claude. Hear me out. Do not have this script your content for you. Rather, write a piece of content, put it into that chat, and say, what are the unnecessary words here? What parts of this are redundant, and what do I need to improve? What sections need to be more specific? Do not write for me. Just have it break it down so that you actually learn, but you have a thing based on your client clarity, based on your organic funnel that constantly is mirroring back to you whether or not you're actually hitting the mark for your ideal client. And once you have 10 of these built, go batch film them and then post 1 to 2 a day for 5 days in a row, and watch after 30 days how much different your content starts to hit.